Welcome back, everybody. Another hobby review by Hans. And after a hiatus into the world of gunpla and radio controlled cars, I am back to genuine scale model building again. Now, if you did like that other content, don't worry. I will have future content that goes back into the radio controlled world. And not necessarily, Bandai, Gunpla, but other similar companies as well. I am working on some builds to bring us to that area. But we are back to scale models, and I am going to do one of the first big, long-established companies out there, the old British stalwart of Airfix. Now, Airfix, honestly, here in the United States, believe it or not, Airfix is actually not that well known and not that well represented over here. There are places that carry it, but it's definitely in the minority over in the United States. And I know it might really, honestly, be a bit of a surprise because Airfix has been around for quite some time. Now, I have done absolutely no research whatsoever other than my own building and my own experience here. So if I have things wrong, make sure to put it in the comments, like, subscribe, come back to my future videos to critique me there, because every view and every subscriber and every like helps get my videos more popular and also gives you more chances to correct me. Anyway, Airfix. So they have been around since, I believe, the early 60s, possibly the late 1950s. And they are a very prolific model builder. A lot of times they come hand in hand paint-wise with Humbrol. I do hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've only ever seen it in print. I've never actually said the word out loud where you can hear it, only in my head. But anyway, Airfix has been around for quite a long time. They do a wide variety of subject matters. I've seen cars, planes, ships, armor, everything. They are actually, one of the things I love of their kit is their variety in scales too. I mean, they broad range of scales, all the way from 1 to 1/44th, all the way up to like the 1/24th Spitfire. And if you're looking for British subjects, and I will say I am actually a bit of an Anglophile, I don't know. For some reason, the British have made a lot of really cool airplanes and tanks and stuff like that over the years. So I like to build their subject matters. And if you're looking for British subjects, Airfix is the way to go. They, like I said, they are prolific, but that's also the home team, so they build a lot of them. Now, for a long time, I actually avoided Airfix. And this is going to sound weird, but basically, and for you British guys out there, this might come out around like a little more sense in a minute. I always kind of equated Airfix very similarly over in the US here with companies like Testors, Revell, Monogram, AMT. And these are companies that have been around for just as long, but they stagnated. All those companies here in the US, they all stagnated. They stopped really, things shifted and that's it. I mean, they had a lot of really cool stuff way back when, but nothing. They haven't grown with the times, and I always kind of thought Airfix was the same, and for quite some time, Airfix really was, I think, legitimately within that category. That's not the case anymore. Now, something switched, and I covered this a bit in my Warhammer review as well. For some reason, I don't know why it shows there's so few views on the Warhammer one. Go back and look at that one, too. I could use more views on that one. Anyway, something switched in British model manufacturing, I'd say 10 to 15 years ago. And something revitalized it, something reinvigorated it, and it showed in the Warhammer, where you could see the difference between the old kits and the new kits. Airfix is the same thing. They went from really reboxing old stuff, reliving the glory days, things of that nature, and then they started a whole new development process, development trend. Really, I'm glad I took a look at them, because they're a hell of a lot better than I expected them to be. They are a top-notch company in many ways, and I can see why the British modeling community really enjoys Airfix so much, because they're worth the hype. But being such an old company, and this is a trap that you're going to fall into with a lot of other old companies, there's a big but to that. So we have right here, I got this at a vintage store here. We have a I believe it's 1965 issue of a Vertol 107. Which is also more commonly known in the U.S. as the CH-47 Sea Knight, which was a Marine Corps Navy helicopter. It looks like a Chinook, but it's a lot smaller, especially when you see them in person. The Sea Knights are a lot smaller. Anyway, this kit is a mid-60s kit. This kit in reboxed forms might still be in production and under other names, if not as only fairly recently. It finally went off into more styrene pastures. And that was one of the issues I had with Airfix for quite some time, is they just reboxed and reboxed and reboxed and reboxed and reboxed. But now, you get a new box and an Airfix kit, chances are it's a whole new tool. And I really got into building Airfix when, like I said, being an Anglophile, really wanted a kit of an English Electric Lightning. Got to go for Airfix for that. And didn't expect much. Built this kit. I was really happy with it. This kit, not going to say it's perfect, but this kit built really well. It was not what I expected from Airfix at the time. And I took a break, went in other directions, things like that. Then they really started, they started going into like a lot of those mid to late 1930s British aircraft. So, for instance, the Bristol Beaufort here, torpedo bomber, which, I know the Beaufort, the Blenheim, I know they had their issues early in the war, but because they were old airplanes by the time. But when these things came out, they were technologically very damn good airplanes. I just love the look of them. I love the concept of them. I haven't gotten one yet, but I'm going to build a Mark I Blenheim because I just love the look of that aircraft. I loved this kit. Actually, this kit at a local hobby show brought me a best in show, not best in show, best in class for this particular kit, which was fantastic. And being a smaller show, the class was military of all scales and subjects. Meaning 172nd airplanes were up against 135th Armor and ships and all that stuff. Not a big show, not going to lie. But anyway, this kit got me the best in class for the military class. Really happy with this build. There's a lot of things I liked about it. I want to do, I actually have a series up here of all the U.S. Navy planes that were in F4 of one version or another. So F4, F Wildcat, of course. I went with the Airfix kit over the Arma Hobby because the Airfix has the oh god, I can't remember the name of the Grumman wing fold system. But anyway, it has the folded wing version of the Wildcat with the wings back in the stow wing, with the wings all the way back up against the fuselage. Airfix is the only kit that actually offers that option, so I went with the Airfix. Airfix has climbed, in my opinion, quite a lot. So I have a couple of kits here too. I'm going to show you the two kits internally just to show you the differences over the years where Airfix was, and up until about 10, 15 years ago still was, as opposed to new here. So I have the Vertol 107 that I'll show you here, which is still factory sealed from the 60s. I also just picked up this Gloucester Meteor as well. I plan on buying a lot more Airfix kits. Honestly, like I mentioned, the Mark I Blenheim. I want a Buccaneer. I want a Sepcat Jaguar. I want a Tornado. The Jet Tornado from the 80s and 90s. So I'm going to be buying a lot more Airfix kits. Like I said, I primarily focus on 1/72nd scale. These guys have a very broad scale. All their modern kits are worth looking at, but I will say with that, make sure to do actually a little research kit by kit just to make sure the part number you're buying is a retool, because they have retooled a lot of their subjects the past few years to make sure you're not getting a reboxed 1960s and you're getting a late 20s, 2010s, 2020s kit. Light year difference. So anyway, let's move this stuff out of the way. We'll go first into the Vertol 107, then I'll go into the Meteor here. Show you guys what these kits are, how they're doing, what they were, what they are. Okay, I hope the audio sounds good for this, everybody, because I am trying something a little different to avoid all the crinkling of the plastic wrappers. So anyway, the 1960s Airfix Vertol 107. Like I said, this kit, if not still in production, is actually under different brand names. Was in production fairly recently with some civilian models. I might actually build this one up as a CH-46 that I saw in operation during some stuff I used to do with the National Guard, working alongside the Navy and Marines on a fairly major event way back when in the 90s. Anyway, so first thing you'll notice, this kit is wrapped. Cellophane, plastic wrapped, shrink wrapped. Something where, unless you used to buy kits in department stores, things like that, you might not have seen in quite some time, but this used to be really common, how that was. So let's get this unwrapped here. 1960s. I mean, this stuff is yellowed. This is original factory seal here. So that's why the packaging looked a little, look at this. It's like brown. So let's get that out of the way. Gives you a good idea for how vibrant the colors actually were. So this kit's probably been sitting in the dark somewhere for many years. Good old Airfix. Top opening box here. There's not much on it. You're going to have some information about the aircraft on the side, but basically just your box arts repeated on the short ends, and they give you a couple of other kits that they offer on the other side there. So not much on the outside compared to what you're used to these days. They used to be so cheap that people just keep buying kits. didn't matter. Anyway, so we open it up here. The first thing you're going to notice, okay, so look at that. No wrapping on anything. This is how kits really used to come. Quite a mess, really. And also in that fantastic 1960s silver plastic here. So everything is just loose in the box, which is, I mean, that's just how the things were. Fuselage, of course. Back in the day, of course, you're looking at it. These are rivets, really. They're not panel lines. So it looks like it's raised panel lines like you used to do all the time. This is actually rivets, very heavy rivet detail on it. But you can also tell, I mean, this was a new mold at the time. People rag on old kits just because they have been buying stuff that's been getting remolded for 25, 30 years. But no, when you get an original, this is one of the reasons people pay so much for the vintage stuff. The molding quality on these things is actually really, really stinking nice. Just crisp molds all around. Your little base in there, but you get your parts are just sitting in here loose. You get scratches and stuff on them anyway. Decal sheet, the old style. There's not much there. Really not much there at all. I wouldn't use this decal sheet now, it would fall apart, but yeah, decals were pretty basic back in the day. But down into the instructions, just plain paper here, a little bit of information on it. Your basics, all your part layout, stuff like that. Not much there. And the assembly instructions, I mean, literally, honestly, there are effectively no instructions. It's just kind of there's not many parts to it. There's not much detail to it. It's pretty obvious where they go. You're supposed to figure it out yourself. Yeah, just not much. I mean, look at it, seriously. This is step one, just shows all the parts. You got to kind of figure out where they go on their own. I mean, everything's just kind of written here. Step two, some external stuff. Step three, some more external stuff, and such detailed stuff here. So like I said, this is what being younger I remembered Airfix to be, was along the lines of this, which is what a lot of your Revell, your Lindbergh, stuff like that was here in the US. You have your stand, which is cute. Everything used to come with a stand. Honestly, this is for the era, having this actually at a fixed scale of 1/72nd. How accurate that is, I don't know, but it's at least in a scale, as opposed to like a lot of the American kits that were what they called box scale, which was just basically they made the sprues to fit the box, and then whatever scale it ended up to be, nothing actually matched. But if you look at the parts here, there's something, you're going to see some stuff that Airfix carries through. I mean, you have your pilot figures, and well, there's not much here. I can't say much because there's just not much here. This is, like I said, this is kind of why I didn't really get too into Airfix, because this is what I expected of their kits for quite some time. Plastic parts, I mean, they're all well molded. Everything looks nicely done. It's just simple. It's kind of crude. And of course you have that lovely silver, because at the time, of course, a lot of these kits were molded in silver because the actual planes were silver, and you would just kind of do the details and the decals, but you wouldn't do an overall paint job. But so that's what Airfix used to be, and let's go back and see how much things have changed. Now let's go to the modern. We have the Gloucester Meteor F8, which is I believe this is the first kit they did in a series so far of Meteor kits. It's only a couple of years old at this point, so this is about as new tool as you're going to get. So looking at the box on the outside, scale, of course, same thing on your ends. You still have artwork, cover art. Wow, that's upside down. Oh, I see, because if it's sitting on the shelf like that, you look at it like that. Little basic information, your schemes, by Homebroll, because that's, of course, what they do. Your normal level stuff. Coupon for your Airfix club, which they have. I love the fact they actually still have their hobby club. Very few companies have that. I think it's basically just Airfix and Edward at this point. On the other side, instead of having your other kits you can buy, yeah, love the modern times. Legal warnings, just nothing but legal warnings. They do say, of course, your decals are now by Cartograph, which is an awesome thing to have, and distributed by Hornby Hobbies, which is now the owner of Airfix. So instead of cellophane wrapped, we are now just a couple pieces of tape on it, because again, you don't see these like in department stores like you used to. We'll open this guy up, and of course the big difference with modern stuff, everything is bagged. Now, everything is bagged. We'll get to the bag in a minute. look at the instructions. Actually, I'll look in the instructions in a moment here. I need to change the battery. I have to say, okay, got back here with a new battery. I love V-mount batteries. All my batteries for this camera were dead, so I have a V-mount powering it now. Anyway, let's go back to the instructions. So first thing you're gonna notice, you have actual instructions. I love the current generation of Airfix instructions. Of course, you have your normal blah, 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 generic stuff about the airplane on the front sheet, various stuff. Let's not worry about that. First thing you're gonna notice here, we have color in your instructions. Up here basically just says follow the instructions, which is great. Little call outs for the icons mean, nothing unusual there. But when you get into the actual instructions here, clear call outs on all your parts, call outs on your paint colors. I love this, the fact it starts showing your orange, of course, shows the difference between parts that are assembled, parts that are to be assembled, things like that. It just keeps on going through. Like I said, it's very nice, but we'll get to some of the really special stuff here in a minute. Another thing I really love about Airfix is they still give you a lot of options. Now, sometimes it can be a little hard to decipher what these symbols mean. Basically, you can build it with the gear down or the gear up, and it comes with the parts to do that to make it a lot cleaner of an install, because a lot of times you can fudge it and make the gear be up or down, but they're not made for it. But here, you can actually build specifically for the gear raised or the gear lowered. If you need nose weight, they actually tell you, which is wonderful. A lot of companies never tell you need nose weight, and you find out when it's too late. Now, it's sold separately now. Airfix still makes stands for these kits, which is honestly, it's something not that I necessarily do myself. I love the fact you have the option there. Also an option if you want to have underwing drop tanks. And you just keep seeing these little symbols in all their kits just to show what style you're building. Which is fantastic. I do love that about Airfix. And their steps they're not like some companies where you have like 30 different parts per step. Here it's usually 1 or 2 pieces per step, which is great. Here you have, of course, another option here of different aileron options. Sometimes with these things, you'll have these alternate parts. They don't necessarily explain what the differences are. You have to do your research, but they're there if you want them. And you'll also have call outs here, like this A and C notification or the B notification. Those are for the different paint schemes in there. It's not just the same airplane with different decals. They typically also give you the different parts that you need. Keep on going. Again, like I said, it's usually each step is only 1 or 2 parts, which is awesome because it just simplifies things so nicely. You're optional. Again, I love this about Airfix. This is one of the things I wish more companies would do. Optional deployed or retracted air brakes. You just don't see that stuff. And Airfix still gives you a pilot. I love the fact they still give you a pilot. I never use the pilot, but they still give you a pilot for pretty much everything. It's just, and also your open or closed canopies. Yeah. Thank you, Airfix, for continuing a lot of those traditions. I really appreciate it. Then we get into your different paint schemes here. For instance, this one, Royal Auxiliary Air Force, silver and blue. You have your call out there for parts assembly. And your paint schemes, it's not glossy paper, but it still gives you all your colors are actually shown, your decals are shown. Same thing with your other schemes here. For instance, in this one you have an RAF jet from 1955, Belgian Air Force. And common stencils, so they give you a lot more decals than they used to. I mean, these are all just little stencil marks. I know it drives people nuts sometimes, and I can't say I enjoy putting that much decals on, but it really does help the look when you have all those stencilings on there. Speaking of the decals, we'll go to those next just because they're next to me and I'm being lazy, so give me 1 second. Put this, give you something to look at while I get these decals out. Okay, now I get the decals. As you can see, a bit of a difference in the decal sheet from then to now. Forgive the fact, that these are yellowed. I mean, they used to come on white backing sheets, which would yellow over time. Most decals from Cartograph now come on the blue backing sheet, mainly because it makes it easier to see your white decals, but it does also help preserve them, keep them from yellowing out. But yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of an improvement. These, of course, are Cartograph decals, which are very common. They've been outsourcing to, a lot of companies have been outsourcing to Cartograph for their decals. I find them a little bit on the thick side, but they respond well to solvents, like Microsol. I use quite a lot for them. But otherwise, they're a bit on the thick side. Takes a little bit of time, about 12 20-30 seconds of water soaking in there to get the decals to release, but they hold together very nicely. They go on well. I really enjoy Cartograph's decals, some of my favorites that they have. I will leave the decals out here a little bit just because one of the few things I don't like about Airfix is their cockpit panels. They just give you a flat panel with a decal on it, which I guess in 1/72 isn't too bad, but I'm just I'm a cockpit and interior freak at times, so I a lot of times go with aftermarket 3D decals for the cockpit area. Anyway, so let's get to the actual kit. Now, again, these are bagged. I hope this isn't crinkling too loud. You will notice their bags don't crinkle as loud, though. It's a softer material than most cellophanes that they have. Now, being a more mass market kit, you will notice that all the parts except the clear parts are all in a single bag. Just that's the sign of a kit that's more general public of a customer base as opposed to specialty shops and only that. Of course, you have 4 sprues here for that. Now, it is in a gray color here. I have seen Airfix kits in a variety of colors, but we'll just kind of go through the parts here briefly to show you what we have. So, of course, like I said, you have a lot more parts breakdown on here. As is typical with all the Airfix kits recently, the molding quality is flawless. Whatever they've done in their design philosophy and their production philosophy and their plastic molding in recent years, it's definitely, whatever they spent on it, it paid off. I will say this cockpit panel is a little different than most. You actually have a little bit of raised detail on there, so if you just want to dry brush, that's not too bad. But it doesn't always line up with the decal. So like I said, I tend to go with an aftermarket panel there. But of course, a lot of your interior rib details for inside of your landing gear wells, you have internal details there. A lot of just really nice stuff here. I mean, you're going to see, yeah, you have your occasional little extra piece to help with the molding, but these parts have no flash on them. There's nothing short molded. Interesting. This is a rare case. Part 54 is missing there. Never had that happen on an Airfix kit in recent times. Is it in the bag? No, that is not in the bag. So I am going to have to actually follow up with Airfix customer service to see what I can do about that. Anyway, and as far as the fuselage here, so along with, they are modern, so you have very finely engraved panel lines. No raised panel lines on these kits. For 1/72, I think this is pretty much spot on, perfect for the depth and how much presence they had. I've had other kits where they're just too fine and you can't see them. Others where it's way too overdone. But like I said, the panel lining on these kits is fantastic, right where it should be. Not much interior decal in the cockpit for this particular kit. It's just one of those, there's not much of a view in there, and the tub will kind of block it all anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. Your wings, again, it's the same quality all around, just very nicely done. You have detail where it's highly visible. It's stuff like in the really deep recesses you might not have any, like in your engine wells, things like that. But interestingly, so they're not used in this kit, but you have, and you can see this is something where they're planning for future usage. You have the dimples in here for drilling out, I'm assuming probably for underwing rocket mounts or bomb mounts. Not in this kit, but like I said, there have been other versions of this, so you can tell that they pre-planned it, which was nice. And your drop tanks, a lot of your landing gear parts, things like that. So that's the kit there. Oh yeah, here's the floor for your cockpit. A little bit of detail on it, not a terrible amount. But yeah, so that's, like I said, that is the difference between a new and the old Airfix. And even back then, I mean, when these molds were new, they were very well molded, just a lot more crude and simple. But yeah, the new stuff, these guys are on par with anybody these days. They might not have the massive detail of some of the other kits out there. These are builders kits. These are, honestly, I love Airfix kits. They're fun to build. Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to the recap and let you guys know how this all wraps up. Oh, wait, sorry. Forgot to show you guys the clear parts. Now, clear parts are bagged separately. Same thick and soft bagging that they have on all their other stuff. And my blade's a little dull. I probably should have gotten some scissors, but I'm lazy and that's what was here. So, like I said, they're clear parts here. Of course, your canopy. You have 2 different canopies. Oh, yeah, 2 different canopies for the different versions. Probably one for open, one for closed. I'm not sure here, but either way, you have 2 different canopies there, and various like your gun sight, probably landing gear lens, some other things like that. I believe some of these are unused because they're for a photo reconnaissance version that they also have available. So they're clear parts. They're not the clearest out there, but they're actually still quite clear. I do like how the one here where you're going to have clear spots that are painted and spots that are clear. The painted area is actually a little bit frosted there, which is nice. Gives you a bit of a differentiation, so that helps. So yeah, that is the clear parts for the Airfix Meteor. One more quick addendum here. I found my missing part. You have your main bag here. Oh, there we are. It was in the bag, but kind of in a weird spot where it actually had gotten outside the sealed portion. But yeah, there's my missing part, so I do have everything. It's like I said, I was really surprised to even notice that it was missing at all, because Airfix's quality control is top notch these days. I have not had an issue with an Airfix kit like ever since I started building modern Airfix. But yeah, there's my missing part. I've got it all. So Airfix. All right, I did realize I forgot one thing. When I was calling out my instruction sheet on the Meteor. They exclusively call out Humbrol brand paints on their instructions. I've never used those paints because they're not that readily available here in the US. But online, the number of British modelers that uses them, I will say the amount of paints available in Europe, the number of paint builders using Humbrol paints tells me they're probably very good paints. So I can't speak to them because I've never used them, but I would say that if that's something available in your area, give them a try. I don't know if they're enamel, they're acrylic, or what. I've never used them, but like I said, a lot of people seem very happy with their paints. So I will give a second-hand recommendation for their paints. Anyway, so Airfix kits themselves, if you can't tell, I love Airfix kits. They are not perfect kits by any means. I do have the critique about the cockpit panels, but I have a critique about cockpit panels for pretty much every kit. They're just not something that, especially 1/72nd, is really given a lot of thought. It doesn't matter the brand. When you start getting 1/48th and larger scales, it's a different deal. So like I said, I'm primarily 1/72nd builder, so that's where I'm coming from. I do have occasional fit issues with their kits. Nothing terrible. If you're a model builder, there's nothing you can't work through and make it look very good. Like for instance, on the Beaufort here, just because of the nature of the airframe itself, the canopy glazing was fairly complex, and there's a little bit of fit issues here and there. In the end, it looks fantastic. On the Wildcat, there were some issues with attaching the wings on because it's a weird way they attached it. But they're also the only company out there that does the Grumman wing folds like that. So it's a weird thing, and they did a good job of it. It didn't come out as good as I had hoped. And I think there was a couple little fit issues on the Lightning as well. Again, compared to most other companies out there, very comparable. But I would put these guys within my top 5 for aircraft building. It says a lot that I've built so many of them, and I've put competition level build effort into so many of their kits because I enjoyed them and they have the detail to back it up. I love the fact that they have so many options available to them. I may not use them myself, but because I don't use something doesn't mean I'm not happy for the people that have it available. I mean, you have the options for a lot of their kits of folding wings, the gear up, the gear down. It doesn't come with it, but you can get stands for it. They pretty much all come with a pilot figure. I mean, other than Tamiya, nobody comes with a pilot figure anymore, but these guys do. And I love the fact they're keeping those older traditions alive in the modern age at a modern built kit. The only foible that I'm going to have for you to recommend for you guys is that depending on where, if it's a kit that's been on the shelf a bit, you do have to be a little bit careful that you're not going to get a Reebok 1960s, 70s, or 80s kit, because they do, and this is a critique I have with a lot of the older established companies, Airfix keeps their kits in production way too long. Tamiya is the same way, Revell is the same way, oh God, AMT and Monogram with their cars. I mean, seriously, their cars, they need to retool their stuff from time to time. Airfix is retooling a lot of the stuff. The other companies just keep reboxing the same thing. So, but again, you do have to do a little bit of your research to make sure you're not buying an old kit. But if you get one of the more modern ones, they are fantastic kits to build They're fantastic kits to look at. The decals are awesome. I can't really, I mean, I'm bragging about these kits because I'm so happy with them. So as far as my ranking system, it's been a while since I did my ranking system. Anyway, if you are a casual modeler, if you're a beginner modeler, if you're just someone that just wants a really cool Spitfire on your shelf, oh God, these guys have Spitfires. And honestly, if you're going to build a Spitfire, build a British built kit of a Spitfire. I mean, that's the way to do it. It's just the way it should be. But again, for most British subjects, the Airfix is the way to go. I'm going to give them a solid B+ to an A rating. Buy a modern Airfix kit with confidence. Be happy with it. Build it. You're going to enjoy these kits. They are, they're not the simplest things, but they strike a really good balance between detail and buildability. The plastic quality is very good. You're not going to go wrong with an Airfix kit if you're someone that's just getting into models. I maybe wouldn't recommend it as like your first or second kit, but if you have a couple kits under your belt, you're going to love these things. Now, if you're a competition model builder, in my scale, 1/72nd, I'll tell you right now, I have a competition winning kit right on the shelf here, right on the table here. Build them with confidence. I'm going to give them the same rating of a solid B+ to an A. There are some areas that if you're going to build for competition purposes, you're going to want to spruce it up a little bit. The seats and the cockpit in particular, the areas you're going to want to look at. You may, depending on how it comes out, the cartograph decals are very good, but they're a little thick for competition purposes. So that's something you may want to look at doing. But otherwise, you got some really solid bones here for some top-notch trophy-winning kits. People do it all the damn time. I mean, this is one of the companies that people turn to for competitions in 1/72nd very regularly. So yeah, so it doesn't matter what skill level builder you are, buy an Airfix kit. Enjoy your Airfix kit. They are top notch. Like I said, solid B+ to an A level. Doesn't matter what level you're at for a modern Airfix kit. Their vintage stuff, I mean, compared to other companies at the time, I gotta say, I mean, yes, I'm looking at it through rose-colored glasses, looking at what a modern kit is, but in the 1960s, these guys were top-notch then too. It might have taken, they might have fallen behind for a little while in the 80s and 90s, maybe. I can't really say too much. I can't remember the 80s very much, or the 90s. I mean, the 80s I was a kid, in the 90s I had the wrong habits. But I mean, realistically, Airfix has always been like fairly close to the top as far as build quality and things like that. So yeah, Airfix, I mean, solid 2 thumbs up. Buy them, enjoy them. There's just so many cool, and they have a selection, so much cool stuff. Anyway, this has been a hobby review by Hans. I mentioned it before, but likes, subscribes, comments, I love them all, even if they're, well, I don't like negatives. So I'll deal with that if it comes to it. It's Airfix. There's a lot of fans. I might get some critiques on it. Anyway, yeah, Airfix, buy them, like it, subscribe it, and I'll see you guys next time.